Hey there, survivors. Thanks for tuning into tonight's episode. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. It really helps me keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, let's get started. The desert has a way of swallowing sound. Out on Highway 50, the loneliest road in America, the only noise most nights was the hum of my cruiser's engine and the occasional crackle of the radio. I'd been a deputy in Lyon County for 8 years, and I thought I'd seen it all. Meth labs in trailers, bar fights that spilled into the street, tourists stranded when their rental cars gave up in the heat. Nevada law enforcement was equal parts babysitter and undertaker. That night started like any other. The sun had dipped behind the mountains, leaving the desert painted in bruised purples and reds. My shift was half over and I was sipping lukewarm coffee from a gas station cup when dispatch crackled in my ear. Unit 12, we've got a call. Report of a man walking down the center line near mile marker 214. Possible intox. I sighed, flicked on the lights and turned the wheel. Another drunk drifter, I figured. Out here, people wandered the desert like ghosts, chasing mirages or running from something they couldn't name. When I found him, he was staggering in the middle of the road, arms hanging limp, head lolling. His clothes were torn, stained dark. I pulled up slow, spotlight cutting across his back. "Sir, step to the shoulder," I called through the PA. No response. I got out, hand resting on my holster. The desert was silent except for the crunch of my boots on gravel. "Sir, you need to move off the road." He turned. His face was pale, lips cracked, eyes clouded like cataracts. Blood smeared his chin, dried in streaks down his shirt. For a second I thought he'd been in a wreck, but there were no skid marks, no vehicles, nothing but him and the endless highway. "Are you hurt?" I asked, stepping closer. That's when he lunged. He moved faster than I expected, arms snapping up, fingers clawing for my throat. I stumbled back, hand flying to my sidearm. "Stop! Sheriff's Department!" He didn't stop. His mouth opened, teeth bared, a guttural moan tearing from his chest. I drew and leveled my Glock. "Don't make me shoot!" He slammed into me, knocking me onto the asphalt. His breath was hot, foul, reeking of copper and rot. His teeth snapped inches from my face. I shoved my forearm against his throat, straining, my other hand fumbling for the gun. The shot echoed across the desert. His body jerked, then went limp, collapsing onto me. My ears rang, chest heaving. I shoved him off, scrambling to my feet, gun still raised. He didn't move. Blood pooled beneath him, dark against the asphalt. My hands shook as I keyed the radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. I've got a 10:54 at mile marker 214. Male suspect down, send backup and medical." Static crackled back. "Copy, Unit 12. Ambulance en route." I stood there, gun still trained on the body, the desert pressing in. Something about the way he'd moved, the way he hadn't flinched at the warning, gnawed at me. Drunks stumble, junkies twitch. But this man, he'd attacked like an animal. Headlights appeared down the highway. My partner, Deputy Ruiz, pulled up, stepping out with his shotgun slung low. "What the hell happened?" "He came at me," I said, voice tight. "Wouldn't stop. I had no choice." Ruiz crouched, checking the body. "Jesus, looks like he's been dead for hours." I froze. "What?" Ruiz pointed at the man's skin. Grey, cold, stiff. No way he was walking around like this. Before I could answer, the body twitched. Ruiz jerked back, shotgun rising. The man's eyes snapped open, clouded and empty. His mouth gaped, a wet moan spilling out. He clawed at the asphalt, dragging himself toward us despite the bullet hole in his chest. "Holy!" Ruiz fired. The blast tore through the man's skull, spraying the road with gore. The body went still. We stood there, breathing hard, the desert silent again. "What the hell was that?" Ruiz whispered. I didn't have an answer. The radio crackled. "Unit 12, ambulance is 5 minutes out." Do you require additional units? I stared at the ruined body, at the blood soaking into the asphalt. My hand tightened on the radio. Yeah, I said finally. Send everyone. Because deep down I knew this wasn't over. The desert had swallowed a lot of things. Ghost towns, broken dreams, men who thought they could outrun their demons. But tonight it had spit something back out. And it was hungry. The ambulance lights painted the desert red and blue, washing over the asphalt where the body lay. Except it wasn't a body anymore. Ruiz and I had put 2 rounds into the man's skull, and still I couldn't shake the image of him clawing across the pavement, eyes clouded, mouth open like he was starving. The EMTs didn't believe us. They loaded him onto a stretcher, muttering about shock and dehydration. You boys been out here too long, one of them said. Guy's just high as a kite. But I saw the way his skin sagged, grey and cold. I saw the hole in his chest where my bullet had gone clean through. No junkie walks away from that. We followed the ambulance back to Carson Valley Regional, our cruisers trailing its flashing lights. Ruiz was pale, his hands tight on the wheel. You saw it too, he muttered. Yeah, I said. Then what the hell was it? I didn't answer because I didn't know. The ER was chaos when we arrived. Nurses rushed the stretcher inside, shouting vitals. The man's body twitched, jerking against the straps. A doctor leaned over him, frowning. No pulse, he said. He's gone. I exhaled, relief washing over me. Maybe it had been shock. Maybe I'd imagined the movement. Then the man sat up. The room erupted. Nurses screamed, monitors crashed to the floor. The man lunged, teeth sinking into the doctor's throat. Blood sprayed across the white tile, bright and shocking. The doctor gurgled, hands clawing at the wound before collapsing. Get him restrained! Someone shouted. But it was too late. The man tore free of the straps, staggering forward, mouth dripping red. He grabbed a nurse, dragging her down, his teeth snapping. Her scream cut through the ER like a siren. Ruiz raised his shotgun. Move! The blast echoed, glass shattering, bodies diving for cover. The man's head snapped back, blood spraying the wall. He collapsed, twitching, then went still. Silence fell, broken only by the nurse's sobs. The doctor lay dead, his throat torn open. The nurse clutched her arm, blood pouring from a bite. I grabbed a radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 12. We need immediate lockdown at Carson Valley Regional. We've got multiple casualties, possible biohazard. Static crackled back. Say again, Unit 12? Lock it down! I shouted. But it was already too late. The doctor's body twitched. His eyes snapped open, clouded and empty. He sat up, blood still pouring from his throat. The nurse screamed again, scrambling back. Jesus Christ, Ruiz muttered. He fired again, the blast tearing through the doctor's skull. The ER descended into chaos. Patients screamed, staff fled, alarms blared. The bitten nurse collapsed, convulsing, her skin paling. I grabbed her wrist, searching for a pulse. Nothing. Then her eyes opened. She lunged at me, teeth snapping. I shoved her back, my Glock barking. The shot echoed, her body collapsing. The room stank of blood and gunpowder. Nurses sobbed, patients wailed, the floor slick with red. Ruiz reloaded, his hands shaking. What the hell is happening? He whispered. I didn't answer, because I didn't know. We backed into the hallway, guns raised. The ER was chaos, patients staggering, staff screaming, bodies twitching on gurneys. One by one the dead sat up, their eyes clouded, their mouths open. Fall back! I shouted. We pushed through the crowd, firing at anything that moved. The hospital echoed with gunfire, screams and moans. Blood sprayed the walls, the floor slick beneath our boots. We reached the lobby, barricading the doors with chairs and desks. Outside sirens wailed, lights flashing. Deputies poured in, guns raised, faces pale. What the hell's going on? One shouted. They're not staying dead, Ruiz said, his voice raw. You shoot them, they get back up. The deputies stared, disbelief on their faces. Then the moans rose behind us, echoing through the halls. Shapes moved in the shadows. Patients, nurses, doctors. Their eyes were clouded, their mouths dripping red. They stumbled forward, arms outstretched, moaning. The deputies opened fire. The lobby erupted in gunfire, glass shattering, bodies falling. But more kept coming, crawling over the dead, relentless. We fell back again, retreating into the parking lot. The night air was sharp, the sirens deafening, ambulances burned, their lights flashing. The hospital was a war zone. I raised my radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Carson Valley Regional is compromised. We need National Guard, CDC, anyone you can send. Static crackled back. Copy, Unit 12. Units en route. But I knew it wouldn't be enough. Because this wasn't a crime scene. It wasn't a riot. It was the beginning of something worse. And Nevada wasn't ready. By the time dawn broke over Carson Valley, the hospital was a war zone. The parking lot was littered with shell casings, shattered glass, and bodies that refused to stay down. Ruiz and I had barely made it out alive, dragging 2 terrified nurses with us. The sheriff's office radioed every unit to report in, and the voices that answered were ragged, panicked, and fewer than they should have been. Sheriff Dalton was waiting when we pulled into the lot. He was a big man, grey at the temples, the kind of lawman who'd seen everything Nevada could throw at him. Until now. His jaw was tight, his eyes bloodshot. "Inside," he barked. The briefing room smelled of stale coffee and sweat. Deputies crowded around the table, faces pale, uniforms stained. A map of the county was spread across the surface, pins marking the hospital, the highway, and now half a dozen new calls, break-ins, assaults, sick people, attacking neighbors. Dalton slammed his fist on the table. "We're locking this town down. No one in, no one out. Roadblocks on 50, 395, and every dirt track in between. If it breathes and doesn't listen to commands, you put it down." The room went silent. One deputy cleared his throat. "Sheriff, these aren't just drunks or tweakers. They don't stop. You shoot them, they get back up." Dalton's eyes narrowed. "Then you shoot them again. Headshots, center mass. I don't care. We hold this line or we lose everything." The dispatcher, a young woman named Kelly, spoke up from the corner. "Phones are jammed. People are panicking. They're saying it's some kind of plague." Dalton shook his head. "Doesn't matter what it is. Our job is to keep order." But order was already slipping. By mid-morning, the barricades were up. Patrol cars blocked the highways, their lights flashing. Deputies stood with rifles, sweat dripping under the desert sun. Civilians gathered at the edges, shouting, demanding answers. Some begged to be let out. Others demanded protection. I stood at the main roadblock, my Glock heavy on my hip. A man in a business suit shoved forward, his face red. "My family's in Reno. You can't keep us here." "Sir, the roads are closed," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's not safe." "Not safe?" he spat. "You think it's safer here? People are dying in their homes." Behind him, a woman screamed. We turned to see her husband collapse, convulsing on the asphalt. His skin went pale, his eyes clouded. Before anyone could react, he sat up, mouth open, teeth snapping. The deputies opened fire. The crowd scattered, screams echoing across the desert. Blood pooled on the road, the woman wailing over her husband's body. Order was gone. Back at the station, the tension boiled over. Civilians packed the lobby, demanding answers. Some carried hunting rifles, others baseball bats. The survivalist rancher, a man named Briggs, stood at the front, his beard wild, his eyes burning. "You can't keep us penned up like cattle," he growled. "If the government won't protect us, we'll protect ourselves." Dalton squared his shoulders. "You walk out there, you'll die. You want to play soldier, fine, but you'll do it under my command." Briggs sneered. "Your command? You can't even keep the hospital standing." The room erupted, shouts, curses, fists slamming on desks. Lila, the single mother I'd seen at the hospital, clutched her son Noah in the corner, her eyes wide with fear. I stepped forward, raising my voice. Enough. We're all we've got. You want to fight each other, or you want to fight what's coming? The room quieted, but the damage was done. The cracks were showing. That night the town went dark. Power lines failed, plunging the streets into shadow. The only light came from burning houses and the flash of gunfire. The radio crackled non-stop, calls for backup, screams cut short. Static. Ruiz and I patrolled the streets, our cruiser crawling past shuttered windows. The air stank of smoke and blood. Shadows moved in alleys, figures staggering, moaning. We fired until our magazines ran dry, then reloaded with shaking hands. At midnight, Dalton called us back to the station. His face was grim, his voice hoarse. We're losing control. The barricades won't hold. We need to consolidate. Fortify the station, the school, anywhere we can keep people alive. I looked around the room, at the deputies with hollow eyes, at the civilians clutching weapons, at Noah asleep in his mother's arms. Lockdown wasn't working. The town wasn't sealed off. It was a coffin dot. By the second night, the desert wasn't silent anymore. It was alive with moans. The barricades we'd thrown up on Highway 50 looked pitiful in the moonlight. Patrol cars angled across the asphalt, their lights flashing weakly, timbers and scrap metal piled between them. Deputies stood behind the makeshift wall, rifles raised, sweat dripping despite the chill. Beyond the beams of our spotlights, shadows shifted. Dozens of them. Maybe more. Sheriff Dalton paced the line, his voice low but steady. Hold your ground. Aim for the head. Don't waste ammo. I gripped my Glock, the weight suddenly too light. Ruiz stood beside me, shotgun braced, his jaw clenched. They're testing us, he muttered. He was right. The figures moved closer, staggering, moaning, their eyes catching the light. Some wore hospital gowns, others torn jeans, bloodied shirts. Locals. People we'd known. Their faces were pale, their mouths open, their arms reaching. The first wave hit just after midnight. They came in a surge, moans rising into a chorus that echoed across the desert. The barricade shook as bodies slammed against it, hands clawing, teeth snapping. Deputies opened fire, the night erupting with gunfire. Muzzles flashed, bullets cracked, skulls burst. The smell of gunpowder mixed with rot. Hold the line, Dalton roared. I fired until my magazine clicked empty, then reloaded with shaking hands. Ruiz's shotgun boomed, each blast tearing through the swarm, but for every one that fell, two more pressed forward, crawling over the bodies. The barricade groaned, timbers splintering. A deputy screamed as pale hands dragged him over the wall. His rifle clattered to the asphalt, his cries cut short by the sound of tearing flesh. Fall back to the second line, Dalton shouted. We stumbled back, dragging wounded, firing as we retreated. The second barricade was stronger, steel gates from the junkyard welded across the road, reinforced with sandbags. We slammed it shut as the dead swarmed the first line, tearing through the gap. The desert echoed with moans, gunfire and screams. Inside the station, civilians huddled in the dark. Lila clutched Noah, whispering prayers. Briggs, the survivalist rancher, paced with his rifle, muttering about government conspiracies. Kelly, the dispatcher, tried to keep the radios alive, her voice trembling as she relayed calls for help we couldn't answer. We can't hold them, Ruiz said, his face pale. There's too many. Dalton's jaw tightened. We hold as long as we can. Reinforcements are coming. But we all knew that was a lie. The second wave hit harder. They slammed against the steel, their moans deafening, their bodies piling. The gate rattled, hinges groaning. Deputies fired through the gaps, bullets tearing through skulls, but the swarm didn't stop. Then the power died. The spotlights flickered out, plunging the desert into darkness. The only light came from muzzle flashes and the pale glow of the moon. Shadows moved everywhere, impossible to track. "They're inside!" someone screamed. I spun to see a side alley breached, bodies pouring through, staggering into the station yard. Deputies fired wildly, civilians screamed, chaos erupting. "Fall back to the station!" Dalton roared. We ran, boots pounding, hearts racing. The dead swarmed the yard, their moans rising into a roar. We slammed the station doors shut, barricading them with desks and filing cabinets. The walls shook as bodies slammed against them, fists pounding, teeth snapping. Inside, the air was thick with fear. Noah sobbed, clinging to his mother. Briggs shouted about taking control, his rifle waving. Deputies argued, voices rising, panic spreading. Dalton silenced them with a single shot into the ceiling. "We hold this ground," he growled. "This is our Alamo. We fall here, the whole town falls." The pounding grew louder, the walls trembling. Dust rained from the ceiling. The dead were relentless, their moans echoing through the halls. I reloaded, my hands shaking, my chest tight. Ruiz stood beside me, his shotgun braced, his eyes hollow. "We're not getting out of this," he whispered. I didn't answer because I wasn't sure he was wrong. The barricades outside were gone. The station was all we had left, and the desert was closing in. By the third day, the sheriff's office was a fortress in name only. The walls shook with every pounding fist, the air reeked of sweat and fear, and the ammo crates were running dry. Sheriff Dalton gathered us in the briefing room, his voice gravelly from shouting orders all night. "We can't hold here," he said. "The station's a coffin. Our only chance is to move." "Move where?" Briggs demanded, his rifle slung across his chest. "The whole damn county's crawling." Dalton jabbed a finger at the map. "Reno, if anyone's still holding out, it'll be there. We take Route 50 West, convoy, tight formation, and we don't stop for anything." The room buzzed with fear and anger, but no one had a better plan. By noon, we were loading civilians into every vehicle we had. Patrol cars, pickups, even a school bus scavenged from the lot. Engines rumbled, exhaust filling the air. The convoy rolled out, sunlight glaring off windshields, the desert stretching endless and empty ahead. For the first few miles, it almost felt safe. The road was clear, the horizon wide. Noah pressed his face to the bus window, whispering, "We're really getting out." Then we hit mile marker 240. The first wreck appeared suddenly. A semi jackknifed across both lanes, its trailer torn open, cargo scattered. Cars were piled against it, doors hanging open, blood smeared across the glass. We slowed, engines growling, tires crunching over broken glass. "Keep moving," Dalton ordered over the radio. But the wreck wasn't empty. Figures stirred among the cars, pale faces turning toward the sound of engines. Dozens of them, maybe more, crawling out from under twisted metal, staggering into the road. Their moans rose into a chorus, echoing across the desert. "Floor it!" Dalton barked. The convoy surged forward. Patrol cars rammed through the wreckage, bumpers crunching bone. The bus swerved, tires screeching, bodies thudding against its sides. Gunfire erupted from the windows, deputies firing into the swarm. Skulls burst, blood sprayed, but the dead kept coming, clawing at doors, smashing glass. I fired from the passenger seat of my cruiser, my Glock barking, hands slick with sweat. Ruiz drove, knuckles white on the wheel. "We're not getting through!" he shouted. The semi loomed ahead, blocking the road. Dalton's SUV slammed into it, metal screeching. The convoy ground to a halt, engines roaring, horns blaring. "They're all around us!" Someone screamed over the radio. The dead swarmed the vehicles, pounding on doors, clawing at windows. A deputy's cruiser was overturned, bodies dragging him out, his screams cut short. The bus rocked violently, children crying, Lila clutching Noah tight. "Out! Out!" Dalton shouted. We bailed from the vehicles, guns blazing. The highway became a killing ground. Bullets cracking, bodies falling, blood pooling on the asphalt. The air was thick with smoke, the stench of rot choking. I swung my pipe, skulls crunching, blood spraying. Ruiz fired his shotgun, each blast tearing through the swarm. Dalton fought like a man possessed, his rifle roaring, his voice hoarse from shouting. But there were too many. The dead poured from the desert, drawn by the noise, staggering across the sand, their moans rising. The highway was a river of bodies, endless and relentless. "Fall back!" Dalton roared. We scrambled towards the ditch, dragging civilians, firing as we ran. The bus was swarmed, windows shattering, screams echoing. Lila fought her way free, Noah clutched in her arms, her face streaked with blood. Explosions rocked the highway as gas tanks ignited, fireballs lighting the desert. Vehicles burned, smoke rising into the sky. The dead stumbled through the flames, their bodies charred but still moving. We regrouped in the ditch, gasping, bloodied, our numbers cut in half. The highway behind us was a wall of fire and screams, the dead feasting on the fallen. Dalton's face was pale, his eyes hollow. "We can't go west," he said, his voice breaking. "The road's gone." No one argued. We stumbled into the desert, leaving the burning highway behind. The sun beat down, the sand scorched our boots, the air shimmered with heat. Noah sobbed quietly, his small hands clutching Lila's shirt. The highway of death stretched behind us, a graveyard of steel and bone. And ahead, only more desert. The desert swallowed us whole after the highway of death. We stumbled west, half our number gone, the rest broken and silent. The sun beat down, merciless, and every mile felt like 10. By dusk, our throats were raw, our boots shredded, and hope was a word no one dared speak. That's when we saw it. The Lucky Star Casino rose from the desert like a mirage, its neon sign flickering weakly, its glass doors cracked but intact. Once it had been a roadside oasis for gamblers and truckers. Now it loomed like a tomb, silent and waiting. Dalton raised his rifle, scanning the lot. "We hole up here, get inside, secure the floors." The lobby smelled of dust and stale smoke. Slot machines still blinked, their lights flickering, their jingles warped by failing speakers. Poker chips lay scattered across the carpet, drinks still half full on abandoned tables. It was as if everyone had simply vanished mid-hand. "Creepy as hell," Ruiz muttered. We swept the floor, clearing room by room. No bodies, no blood. Just silence. For the first time in days, we had walls around us. We set up camp in the main hall. Civilians collapsed into chairs, too exhausted to care about the eerie glow of the machines. Lila held Noah close, whispering that they were safe now. Briggs prowled the floor, muttering about how casinos were built like fortresses. Dalton gathered us near the bar. "We'll ration supplies, set watches. This place will hold." But the cracks showed fast. The casino was a maze, endless hallways, locked doors, hidden rooms. Every creak of the building made us jump. At night, the neon lights flickered, casting shadows that moved when we didn't. The slot machines chimed randomly, their speakers crackling like whispers. On the second night, we heard it. A faint banging, muffled, coming from below. We followed the sound to a locked service door near the kitchen. The metal rattled with each thud. Dalton raised his rifle, nodding to Ruiz. Together they forced it open. The smell hit us first, sweat, fear, and rot. Inside, huddled in the basement, were survivors. 6 of them, gaunt and filthy, their eyes wide with terror. They blinked at the light, shielding their faces. One, a woman in her 30s, stepped forward. "Please," she whispered, "don't shoot." Dalton lowered his rifle slowly. "How long have you been down here?" "Since it started," she said. "We locked ourselves in when the first ones came through. We thought no one was left." The group stumbled into the hall. collapsing onto chairs, clutching bottles of water like treasure. Relief rippled through our people. Proof we weren't alone. But relief didn't last. One of the basement survivors, a man with a bandaged arm, wouldn't meet our eyes. His skin was pale, his sweat cold. Lila noticed first. "He's sick," she whispered. Dalton demanded answers. The woman hesitated, then admitted the truth. He'd been bitten days ago. The room erupted. Briggs shouted to put him down. Others begged for mercy. The bitten man shook, his eyes glassy, his breath ragged. "We can't risk it," Ruiz said, his shotgun steady. "No," the woman pleaded. "He's still him. Please." Dalton's jaw tightened. "We don't have the luxury of hope." The man convulsed, collapsing to the floor. His body twitched, his mouth opening in a guttural moan. Chaos exploded. He lunged, teeth snapping, dragging a woman down. Screams echoed through the hall, blood spraying across the carpet. Deputies fired, the blast deafening, the body jerking before going still. But the damage was done. The survivors we'd rescued turned on us, screaming, accusing. Briggs shouted that Dalton had doomed them all. Civilians panicked, scattering through the casino's endless halls. The fragile order we'd built shattered in seconds. Dalton fired into the ceiling, silencing the room. "We hold this place," he growled. "Anyone who can't follow orders can leave." But no one left, because outside the desert was alive with moans. Through the cracked glass doors we saw them, figures staggering across the lot, drawn by the gunfire and the neon glow. Dozens, maybe hundreds, their pale faces catching the light. The Lucky Star Casino wasn't a refuge dot. It was a beacon dot, and the dead were coming. The Lucky Star Casino had become a fortress of flickering neon and fear. We'd barricaded the entrances with overturned tables and slot machines, but the moans outside never stopped. They pressed against the glass, pale faces smeared with blood, hands clawing for a way in. Inside, the survivors we'd pulled from the basement huddled in the main hall. Their eyes darted to every shadow, every sound. The man with the bandaged arm, his name was Carter, sat slumped in a chair, sweat dripping down his face. His skin was grey. His lips cracked. Lila whispered to me as Noah slept in her lap. "He's not going to make it." I didn't answer, because we both knew what was coming. By morning, Carter was worse. His breathing was shallow, his eyes glassy. The others argued in hushed tones. Briggs paced like a caged animal, his rifle slung across his chest. "We can't keep him here," he growled. "He's a ticking time bomb." The woman from the basement, Mara, snapped back. "He's one of us. We don't just throw people away." Dalton stood between them, his face carved from stone. "We don't have the luxury of mercy. If he turns, we all die." The room erupted. Voices clashed, fear boiling over. Some begged for compassion, others demanded blood. Ruiz leaned close to me, his voice low. "We've seen this before. You know how it ends." I did. But when Carter's eyes fluttered open, he whispered something that froze me. "Please, don't let me hurt anyone." He knew. Dalton raised his rifle, jaw tight. "It has to be now." Mara threw herself in front of Carter, tears streaming. "No, he's still alive." Briggs snarled. "Not for long." He raised his own weapon, finger tightening on the trigger. The standoff stretched, the air thick with tension. Guns pointed, voices shouted, fear turned to rage. Then Carter convulsed. His body jerked violently, his mouth opening in a guttural moan. His eyes clouded, his skin paling. Mara screamed as he lunged, teeth snapping inches from her throat. Chaos exploded. Briggs fired first, the shot tearing through Carter's chest. It didn't stop him. He clawed forward, dragging Mara down. She shrieked, blood spraying as his teeth sank into her shoulder. Deputies opened fire, bullets cracking, Carter's skull bursting in a spray of red. But Mara was already bitten. She writhed on the carpet, clutching her shoulder, blood pouring between her fingers. Her eyes were wide, her breath ragged. "Please," she sobbed. "Don't let me turn." Dalton's face was grim. "We can't risk it." "No," Briggs shouted. "She's fine. She can fight." "She's infected," Ruiz snapped. "We've seen it. Minutes, maybe hours, but it always ends the same." The room fractured again, half shouting to end it, half begging for mercy. Noah woke, crying, clinging to Lila, the sound cut through the chaos like a knife. Mara's sobs turned to screams as her body convulsed. Her skin paled, her eyes clouded. She thrashed, teeth snapping, her voice gone. Dalton fired once. The shot echoed through the casino, silencing everything. Mara's body went still, blood pooling beneath her. The survivors stared, hollow-eyed, the smell of gunpowder and blood thick in the air. Briggs lowered his rifle slowly, his face twisted with rage. "You killed her," he spat. "She was already gone," Dalton said flatly. Briggs shook his head. "No, you don't get to decide who lives and dies." Dalton stepped closer, his voice low and hard. "Someone has to." The two men locked eyes, the tension sharp enough to cut. Around them, the others shifted uneasily, hands tightening on weapons. The casino felt less like a refuge and more like a powder keg. Outside, the moans grew louder, fists pounding against the glass. The dead pressed closer, drawn by the gunfire and the shouting. The barricades rattled, neon lights flickering. Inside, the living were tearing themselves apart. I looked at Lila, at Noah's terrified face, at Ruiz's hollow eyes. We'd survived the hospital, the highway, the desert. But here in this casino, I realized the truth. The dead weren't our only enemy. The living were just as dangerous. The Lucky Star Casino was no longer a refuge. It was a powder keg, and the spark had already been lit. After Mara's execution, the survivors split into factions. Half clung to Dalton's authority, desperate for order. The other half rallied around Briggs, the survivalist rancher who preached that the sheriff's badge meant nothing now. His voice carried through the casino halls, sharp and angry. "Dalton's decisions are killing us," Briggs growled, pacing in front of the barricaded doors. "First the hospital, then the highway, now this. How many more have to die before we take control?" Dalton stood firm, his rifle slung across his chest. "You want to walk out there, be my guest, but as long as you're in here, you follow my command." The room buzzed with tension. Civilians clutched makeshift weapons, pipes, bats, kitchen knives. Deputies tightened their grips on rifles. Lila held Noah close, her eyes darting between the two men. Ruiz leaned close to me, whispering, "This is going to blow." He was right. The breaking point came that night. The dead pressed harder against the glass, their moans rising into a chorus. The barricades rattled, neon lights flickering. Inside, Briggs gathered his followers near the bar. "We can't sit here waiting to die," he said. "We take the supplies, the guns, and we make our own way." Dalton stormed in, his voice booming. "You try it, and you'll be leaving in body bags." The standoff was instant. Guns raised, voices shouted, fear turned to rage. Civilians screamed, deputies barked orders, the casino echoing with chaos. Then the glass shattered. The dead poured in. Drawn by the shouting, their pale faces lit by neon, they stumbled across the carpet, knocking over slot machines, their moans drowning out the screams. Gunfire erupted. Deputies fired into the swarm, bullets tearing through skulls. Civilians panicked, scattering through the maze of hallways. Briggs shouted for his men to hold the line, but they broke, fleeing deeper into the casino. I swung my pipe, skulls crunching, blood spraying across the carpet. Ruiz fired his shotgun. each blast echoing through the hall. Dalton fought like a man possessed, his rifle roaring, his voice hoarse from shouting. But the dead weren't the only enemy. Briggs' men turned their guns on us, firing wildly in the chaos. Bullets shattered glass, tore through walls, screams echoing. One deputy went down, blood pooling beneath him. Another civilian collapsed, clutching his chest. The casino became a battlefield. Humans against humans, humans against dead. The neon lights flickered, slot machines chimed, the air thick with smoke and blood. "Fall back!" Dalton roared. We retreated toward the upper floors, dragging civilians, firing as we ran. The dead swarmed the lobby, their moans echoing through the halls. Briggs and his men vanished into the maze, their shouts fading. On the second floor, we barricaded the stairwell with overturned tables and vending machines. The dead pounded below, their moans rising. The survivors huddled in the dark, eyes wide, faces pale. Dalton leaned against the wall, his rifle empty, his face grim. "We can't stay here, the casino's lost." Ruiz wiped blood from his face, his voice raw. "Then where the hell do we go?" Dalton didn't answer. Lila clutched Noah, whispering prayers. The boy's eyes were wide, his small hands trembling. I looked at them, at the hollow faces around me, and felt the weight of it all. The dead were relentless. The living were divided. And Nevada was burning. We fled the Lucky Star Casino under fire, gunfire from Briggs' mutineers behind us, moans of the dead closing in from every side. The neon beacon we'd thought was salvation had become a death trap, and the desert was our only escape. The night air was sharp, the stars hidden behind a wall of dust rising on the horizon. At first I thought it was smoke. Then the wind hit us, hot, dry, carrying sand that stung our eyes and filled our lungs. "A storm's coming!" Ruiz shouted over the howl. He was right. A desert sandstorm, the kind that could strip paint off a car and bury a man alive. And we were running straight into it. Dalton pushed us forward, his voice hoarse. "Keep moving. The storm will cover us." The survivors stumbled across the scrubland, clutching children, dragging packs. The wind roared, sand whipping our faces raw. The moans of the dead faded behind us, swallowed by the storm. For a moment I thought we'd lost them. But the storm wasn't mercy. It was chaos. Visibility dropped to nothing. The world turned red and brown, sand swirling so thick I couldn't see my own hands. The group scattered, voices lost in the howl. "Stay together!" I shouted, but the wind tore the words away. Shapes loomed in the storm, figures staggering, arms outstretched. At first I thought they were ours. Then I saw the eyes, clouded and empty. The dead had followed us into the storm. Gunfire cracked, muffled by the wind. Shadows lunged, screams cut short. The storm swallowed everything. Sound, sight, hope. I swung my pipe blindly, the impact jarring my arms, blood spraying across the sand. Ruiz fired his shotgun, the blast flashes of light in the swirling dark. Dalton's voice roared commands, but I couldn't see him, couldn't see anyone. Then a hand grabbed mine. Lila. Her face was streaked with sand and tears. Noah clutched to her chest. "Don't let go!" she screamed. We stumbled together, blind, the storm tearing at us. Figures lunged from the dust, their moans drowned by the wind. I swung, Ruiz fired, Dalton shouted, but the storm swallowed it all. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time didn't exist in the storm. Just sand, wind, and death. When the wind finally eased, the world was unrecognizable. The desert was buried under dunes, the casino gone, the highway erased, survivors staggered from the dust, their faces raw, their eyes hollow. But not all of us made it. Half the group was gone, swallowed by the storm, dragged down by the dead, or lost in the chaos. Briggs and his men were nowhere to be seen. Maybe the storm had buried them. Maybe worse. Dalton stood on a dune, his rifle slung, his face carved from stone. "We keep moving," he said. His voice was flat, empty. The survivors looked at him with hollow eyes. No one argued. We stumbled west, the desert endless, the sun rising over a world remade. The storm had wiped the slate clean, roads gone, landmarks buried. Nevada itself felt dead. Noah clung to Lila, his small voice trembling. "Where are we going?" Lila's eyes filled with tears. "Somewhere safe," she whispered. But we all knew there was no safe left. That night we camped in the shadow of an abandoned mine shaft, the wind still howling through the hills. The survivors huddled together, silent, broken. I sat with Ruiz, cleaning sand from my Glock, my hands shaking. "We're not going to make it," he muttered. I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure he was wrong. The storm had saved us from the casino, but it had also scattered us, buried our hope, and left us in a desert that no longer belonged to the living. The dead were still out there. And so were we. The storm had buried the world. When the dust finally settled, the desert was unrecognizable. Roads erased, landmarks swallowed, the Lucky Star Casino gone beneath dunes. We were ghosts wandering a wasteland. By dusk, we stumbled across the mouth of an abandoned mine. Its wooden frame sagged, timbers blackened with age, the entrance yawning like a throat. Dalton studied it, his face grim. "We'll shelter here. Storm won't touch us underground." The survivors hesitated. The mine breathed cold air, carrying the scent of rust and rot. But the desert offered no choice. We lit lanterns and stepped inside. The tunnels swallowed us whole. Walls of jagged rock pressed close, the air damp and heavy. Our footsteps echoed too loud, bouncing through the dark. Noah clung to Lila, his small voice trembling. "I don't like it here." Neither did I. We set camp in a wide chamber, lanterns casting weak circles of light. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the drip of water and the rasp of our own breathing. Dalton ordered watches, his voice low. "Stay sharp. Mines have a way of playing tricks." He was right. That night the echoes began. At first, faint, scrapes, whispers, the shuffle of feet. Ruiz swore it was just the wind, but the sounds grew louder, closer. Moans carried through the tunnels, low and guttural, bouncing off the stone. "They're down here," Briggs muttered, his eyes wide. "They followed us." Dalton shook his head. "No way. They'd never survived the storm." But the moans kept coming. We formed a line, rifles raised, lanterns swaying, the tunnels twisted, shadows shifting. Figures emerged from the dark, stumbling, moaning, their eyes clouded. Their skin was torn, their clothes caked with sand. The dead had found us. Gunfire erupted, deafening in the confined space. Bullets sparked off stone, skulls burst, blood sprayed across the walls. The moans echoed, multiplying, impossible to track. "Fall back!" Dalton shouted. We retreated deeper, boots pounding, lanterns swinging. The tunnels narrowed, walls pressing close. The dead swarmed behind us, their moans a chorus of hunger. We stumbled into another chamber, larger, with a shaft rising above. A faint glow filtered down, moonlight pale and distant. "There!" Ruiz shouted. "An exit!" The shaft was narrow, lined with rusted ladders and broken timbers. It stretched high, impossibly far, but it was a way out. Dalton ordered civilians up first. Lila clutched Noah, climbing with trembling hands. Others followed, their faces pale, their breaths ragged. The dead poured into the chamber, their moans deafening. Ruiz fired his shotgun, each blast echoing like thunder. I swung my pipe, skulls crunching, blood spraying. Dalton fought at the base of the ladder, his rifle roaring, his voice hoarse. "Climb!" he shouted. "Don't stop!" The shaft shook with every shot, dust raining down, the ladder groaned, timbers cracking. Survivors scrambled upward, their screams echoing. One man slipped, his hands clawing. The dead dragged him down, teeth tearing, blood spraying. His screams cut short, swallowed by the moans. We climbed higher, lungs burning, arms shaking. The dead clawed at the ladder, their hands slick with blood. Dalton fired until his rifle clicked empty, then swung it like a club, smashing skulls. "Go," he roared. "I'll hold them." But we didn't leave him. Ruiz and I fired down, our shots tearing through the swarm. The dead piled beneath us, relentless, their moans rising into a roar. The shaft narrowed, the light brighter. Moonlight spilled down, silver and cold. Lila reached the top, dragging Noah onto the surface. Others followed, gasping, sobbing. I climbed last, my arms trembling, my chest burning. Below, Dalton fought like a man possessed, his rifle a club, his fists swinging. The dead swarmed him, dragging him down. "Go!" he shouted, his voice echoing. Then the swarm swallowed him. I hauled myself into the night, collapsing onto the sand. The survivors lay scattered, gasping, their faces streaked with blood and dust. The mine mouth yawned below, the moans echoing from the dark. Dalton was gone, but above us, the moon shone bright, the desert stretching endless. We were alive. For now, the shaft stretched above us like a throat of stone, narrow and endless, the pale moonlight at the top a promise of air and freedom. But between us and that light was a climb that could kill us, even without the dead clawing at our heels. The survivors clung to the rusted ladder, their hands trembling, their breaths ragged. Lila went first. Noah strapped to her chest with a strip of torn cloth. Her knuckles were white, her face streaked with dirt and tears. But she climbed. One rung at a time. "Don't look down," I whispered. Below, the moans rose, echoing through the tunnels. The dead poured into the chamber, their pale faces catching the lantern light. They clawed at the ladder, their fingers slick with blood, their mouths open in hunger. Ruiz fired his shotgun, the blasts deafening in the confined space. Skulls burst, bodies fell, but more pressed forward, crawling over the dead. Dalton fought at the base, swinging his rifle like a club, his voice hoarse from shouting. "Climb!" he roared. "Don't stop!" The ladder groaned under our weight, bolts rattling, timbers cracking, dust rained down, choking us. The shaft shook with every shot, every scream. Halfway up, a man slipped. His hand missed the rung, his body tumbling. He screamed as he fell, the dead swarming him instantly. His cries cut short, swallowed by the moans. The survivors froze, terror rooting them in place. "Keep moving," I shouted. "If you stop, we all die." They climbed, sobbing, gasping, their hands raw, their arms shaking. Lila gritted her teeth, Noah whimpering against her chest. She climbed like a woman possessed, every rung a battle. The dead clawed higher, their hands reaching, their moans deafening. One grabbed my boot, yanking hard. I kicked, my heel smashing its face, teeth scattering. It fell, dragging others with it, but more climbed over the pile. Ruiz fired again, his shotgun booming, the recoil nearly knocking him from the ladder. "I'm out!" he shouted, tossing the empty weapon. He drew his sidearm, firing down, each shot echoing. Dalton was still at the base, fighting like a man who knew he wouldn't see the surface. He swung his rifle, smashed skulls, roared defiance. The dead swarmed him, dragging him down. "Go!" he shouted, his voice echoing. "Get them out!" Then the swarm swallowed him. I climbed faster, my chest burning, my arms screaming. The light grew brighter, the air cooler. The survivors above sobbed, gasped, clawed their way upward. The ladder groaned, bolts snapping. A section tore free, crashing down, taking 2 survivors with it. Their screams echoed, cut short by the moans. We climbed higher, the shaft narrowing, the light blinding. My hands bled, my arms shook, but I didn't stop. Lila reached the top, dragging Noah onto the surface. Ruiz followed, gasping, his face streaked with blood. I was last. The dead clawed below, their moans rising, their hands reaching. I climbed, lungs burning, vision blurring. The light grew brighter, the air fresher. Then a hand grabbed mine. Ruiz, his grip strong, his eyes fierce, he hauled me up, dragging me onto the sand. We collapsed, gasping, our bodies trembling. The survivors lay scattered, sobbing, their faces pale. Lila clutched Noah, whispering prayers, her tears streaking his hair. The mine mouth yawned below, the moans echoing from the dark. Dalton was gone, but above us, the moon shone bright, the desert stretching endless. We were alive, for now. The climb out of the mine should have felt like salvation. After hours of choking dust and echoing moans, the night air hit my lungs like fire. The moon hung over the desert, pale and cold, and for a moment I thought we'd made it. But the surface wasn't safe. The desert stretched endless, dunes reshaped by the storm, landmarks erased. Fires burned on the horizon, black smoke curling into the sky. The air carried the acrid stench of gasoline and something worse. Rot, thick and sour, drifting on the wind. We staggered from the shaft, collapsing onto the sand. Lila clutched Noah, whispering prayers, her face streaked with tears. Ruiz leaned against a boulder, his shotgun hanging limp, his eyes hollow. The survivors lay scattered, gasping, their bodies trembling. Then we heard it. Engines. Headlights cut across the desert, blinding in the dark. A convoy of military trucks rumbled over the dunes, their tires crushing sand, their guns mounted high. For a heartbeat, hope flickered. Rescue. Order. Salvation. We stumbled forward, waving, shouting, "Over here! Help!" The trucks slowed, engines growling. Soldiers in desert camo scanned us from the turrets, rifles raised. Their faces were hard, their eyes cold. One soldier shouted through a bullhorn, "Stay back! This area is under quarantine!" Dalton was gone, but I stepped forward, badge still pinned to my chest. "We're survivors! We need evacuation!" The soldier's voice was flat. "No civilians. Orders are to contain, not rescue." The words hit like a bullet. "Please!" Lila cried, holding Noah high. "He's just a child!" The soldier hesitated, his rifle wavering. Then the convoy roared forward, engines screaming, sand spraying. They didn't stop. They didn't look back. We dove aside as the trucks thundered past, their lights vanishing into the night. The desert swallowed the sound, leaving only silence and the faint echo of moans. Hope died on that highway. We regrouped, shaken, broken. Ruiz spat into the sand, his voice raw. "The government's gone, we're on our own." No one argued. We moved west, stumbling through the dunes, the fires on the horizon growing brighter. The desert was alive with shadows, figures staggering, moaning, their eyes catching the moonlight. The dead had followed us out of the mine. We ran, boots pounding, lungs burning. The moans rose behind us, echoing across the sand. Noah sobbed, his small hands clutching Lila's shirt. The survivors scattered, firing blindly, screams cutting through the night. We stumbled into a canyon, the walls rising high, the shadows deep. The dead poured in behind us, their moans deafening. We fired until our magazines clicked empty, then swung pipes and knives, blood spraying across the stone. The canyon echoed with chaos. Gunfire, screams, the crack of bone. Bodies fell, but more pressed forward, relentless, endless. "Climb!" Ruiz shouted, hauling survivors up the rocks. Lila scrambled, Noah clutched to her chest, her hands bleeding. I swung my pipe, skulls crunching, blood spraying, buying them seconds. We reached the ridge, gasping, our bodies trembling. Below the canyon was a sea of dead, their pale faces turned upward, their moans rising into the night. The surface wasn't salvation. It was another kind of hell. We collapsed on the ridge, the fires on the horizon painting the sky red. The survivors lay scattered, sobbing, their faces hollow. Lila held Noah, whispering prayers, her tears streaking his hair. Ruiz sat beside me, his shotgun empty, his eyes dead. "We can't keep running," he muttered. "There's nowhere left." I looked at the horizon, at the fires burning, at the smoke rising. He was right. The mines hadn't saved us. The surface hadn't either. Nevada was gone, and the world above was worse than the world below. The desert was burning behind us, the mines swallowed by moans, the horizon painted red with fire. We thought the storm and the dead were the worst Nevada could throw at us. We were wrong. It happened at dawn. We'd camped in the ruins of a gas station, its pumps rusted, its windows shattered. The survivors huddled inside, too exhausted to argue, too broken to hope. Ruiz and I took first watch, rifles across our laps, the desert stretching endless and silent. Then headlights cut through the dawn. Engines roared, tires crunching gravel. A convoy of battered trucks rolled into view, their beds bristling with men in leather jackets and stolen body armor. They carried rifles, machetes, chains. Their faces were hard, their eyes hungry. "Raiders!" They circled the station like wolves, engines growling, dust rising. Their leader stepped forward, a tall man with a scar across his cheek and a shotgun slung low. He grinned, teeth yellow. "Well, well," he drawled. "What do we have here? Strays." Dalton was gone, but I stepped forward, badge still pinned to my chest. "We don't want trouble. Just let us pass." The raider laughed. "Trouble's all there is now, lawman. World's dead, law's dead, only thing left is what you can take." He raised his shotgun, pointing it at Lila. "And I'll be taking her." The survivors gasped. Noah clung to his mother, his small hands trembling. Lila's face was pale, her eyes wide. "Over my dead body," I said, raising my Glock. The raider grinned wider. "That can be arranged." Gunfire erupted. The gas station exploded into chaos. Bullets cracking, glass shattering, screams echoing. Raiders poured in, firing wildly, their laughter mixing with the moans that rose on the wind. The dead had heard the noise. I fired until my magazine clicked empty, then reloaded with shaking hands. Ruiz blasted with his shotgun, each shot tearing through raiders. Survivors scattered, some fighting, others fleeing. Briggs appeared from the shadows, his rifle barking. For once, he wasn't aiming at us. He cut down 2 raiders, his face twisted with rage. "They're mine!" he roared. The raiders fought like animals, swinging chains, slashing knives. One tackled me, his blade flashing. We rolled across the floor, fists flying, blood spraying. I smashed his head against the counter until he went still. Outside, the moans grew louder. The dead were coming. The raiders didn't care. They laughed, firing into the swarm, hacking with machetes. But the dead didn't fall back. They pressed forward, relentless, endless. The gas station became a 3-way battlefield, us, the raiders and the dead. Bullets cracked, skulls burst, blood sprayed. The air was thick with smoke, the stench of rot choking. "Fall back!" Ruiz shouted. We scrambled towards the rear exit, dragging civilians, firing as we ran. Lila clutched Noah, her face streaked with blood. Briggs covered us, his rifle roaring, his voice hoarse. The raiders were swallowed by the swarm, their laughter turned to screams, their blades useless against the tide. The dead tore them down, teeth snapping, blood spraying. We burst into the desert, gasping, our bodies trembling. Behind us, the gas station burned, the dead feasting on the fallen. The raiders' screams echoed, then faded, swallowed by the moans. We collapsed on the sand, the survivors sobbing, their faces hollow. Ruiz sat beside me, his shotgun empty, his eyes dead. "The living are worse than the dead," he muttered. I looked at Lila, at Noah's terrified face, at Briggs' blood-streaked hands. He met my eyes, his voice low. Next time, it won't be raiders. It'll be us. The desert stretched endless, the fires on the horizon painting the sky red. Nevada was gone, and the living were tearing each other apart. The desert had burned behind us, the raiders torn apart by the dead, and still we kept moving west. Days blurred together. Dust, hunger, silence broken only by Noah's quiet sobs and the rasp of boots on sand. When the Colorado River finally came into view, it felt like a miracle. The water shimmered under the sun, wide and fast, cutting through the desert like a silver blade. On the far side, the Hoover Dam loomed, its concrete face cracked but still standing, turbines silent. It was the first sign of civilization we'd seen in days. Ruiz dropped to his knees at the riverbank, splashing water on his face. "We made it," he whispered. But the river wasn't salvation, it was another obstacle. The current was strong, churning, carrying debris, branches, tires, even a half-submerged car. The bridge nearby had collapsed, its twisted steel jutting from the water like broken bones. The dam itself was sealed, gates locked, no sign of life. "We'll never swim it," Briggs muttered, his eyes scanning the water. "We don't have a choice," I said. "The dead are behind us. They'll be here soon." We scavenged what we could. Planks, barrels, rope. With shaking hands we lashed them together into a makeshift raft. It looked like it would fall apart in a stiff breeze, but it was all we had. Lila strapped Noah to her chest, her face pale. "We'll make it," she whispered, more to herself than to him. We pushed the raft into the water, climbing aboard. The current seized us instantly, dragging us downstream. The raft groaned, water sloshing over the sides. We paddled with broken boards, fighting to stay upright. Then the moans rose. Figures staggered onto the riverbank, drawn by the noise. Dozens of them, their pale faces catching the sun. They stumbled into the water, arms outstretched, their moans echoing. At first, I thought the current would sweep them away, but they didn't stop. They clawed forward, dragged by the current, their mouths snapping. Some sank, bubbles rising. Others floated, their arms reaching, their eyes locked on us. "They're swimming," Noah cried, his small voice trembling. "Keep paddling," I shouted. The dead swarmed the raft, their hands clawing, their teeth snapping. One grabbed the edge, pulling hard, the raft tilted, water rushing in. Ruiz swung his shotgun like a club, smashing its skull, blood spraying across the water. Another lunged, teeth sinking into a survivor's arm. She screamed, thrashing, dragged into the current. The river swallowed her, her cries cut short. The raft groaned, splitting. Planks tore free, barrels bobbing. We clung to the wreckage, paddling desperately. The current dragged us towards the dam, its concrete wall looming. "Hold on!" I shouted. The raft slammed against the dam, splintering. We scrambled, clawing at the slick concrete, hauling ourselves onto a narrow ledge. Water roared below, the current tearing at our legs. The dead weren't far behind, their bodies slammed against the dam, clawing, moaning, their hands reaching. Some were crushed against the concrete, their bones snapping. Others clawed upward, relentless. We climbed, fingers bleeding, arms shaking. The dam loomed above, its gates sealed, its walls cracked. The sun beat down, the roar of water deafening. Lila hauled Noah onto the ledge, her face streaked with tears. "Don't look down," she whispered. Ruiz climbed beside me, his breath ragged. "We can't hold here, we need to get inside." Briggs scanned the wall, his eyes sharp. "Maintenance hatch. There." A rusted door clung to the concrete, half hidden by debris. We scrambled toward it, the dead clawing below, their moans rising. The hatch groaned, rust flaking, but it opened. We stumbled inside, collapsing onto the cold concrete floor. The roar of the river faded, replaced by silence. For a moment we just breathed. Alive. But the dam wasn't salvation. It was another trap. The halls stretched endless, dark and silent. The air was stale, the walls cracked. And somewhere in the dark, echoes stirred. The dead weren't far, and the river hadn't washed them all away. The Hoover Dam loomed above us like a fortress carved from stone, its massive walls cracked but unbroken, its turbines silent. Inside, the air was stale, the halls echoing with every step. We'd made it across the river, but the dam wasn't salvation, it was a battlefield waiting to happen. We moved through the maintenance corridors, flashlights cutting across rusted pipes and peeling paint. The survivors were silent, their faces pale, their eyes hollow. Lila clutched Noah, whispering that it would be all right, though her voice trembled. Ruiz walked beside me, shotgun braced, his jaw tight. Briggs trailed behind, muttering about how the dam could be turned into a fortress. We reached the control room, its windows overlooking the river. Panels of switches and gauges lined the walls, most dead, some flickering weakly. Dalton was gone, but his voice echoed in my head. Hold the line. Then the moans rose. They came from the tunnels, echoing through the dam, low, guttural, endless. The dead had followed us. Their pale faces appeared in the dark, their moans rising into a chorus. "Positions!" I shouted. We barricaded the doors with desks and machinery, rifles aimed, hearts pounding. The dead slammed against the walls, fists pounding, teeth snapping. The dam shook with every impact, dust raining from the ceiling. The first breach came fast. The doors burst open, bodies pouring through, moaning, clawing. Gunfire erupted, deafening in the confined space. Bullets cracked, skulls burst, blood sprayed across the walls. "Hold the line!" Ruiz roared, his shotgun booming. I fired until my magazine clicked empty, then reloaded with shaking hands. Lila dragged Noah behind a console, shielding him with her body. Briggs fought like a man possessed, his rifle roaring, his voice hoarse. But the dead kept coming. They poured through the tunnels, crawling over the fallen, relentless. The barricade splintered, the walls shook. The dam itself seemed to groan under the weight of the swarm. "We can't hold!" a survivor screamed. Briggs's eyes burned. "Then we use the dam." He pointed to the floodgates, massive levers rusted with age. "We open them. We drown the bastards." Ruiz hesitated. "That'll take us with them." Briggs grinned, teeth bared. "Better us than them." The dead surged forward, their moans deafening. We fell back to the floodgate controls, firing wildly, blood spraying. Briggs shoved past, grabbing the lever. "Cover me!" he roared. We fired, bullets tearing through skulls, bodies collapsing. Briggs heaved, muscles straining, the lever groaning. The gates shuddered, then opened. The roar was deafening. Water thundered through the dam, a wall of white fury. It tore through the tunnels, sweeping the dead away, their moans drowned by the roar. Bodies smashed against walls, bones snapping, blood spraying. The dam shook, concrete cracking, dust raining. Briggs held the lever, his face twisted with rage and triumph. "This is our stand," he shouted. Then the dead dragged him down. They swarmed him, teeth sinking, blood spraying. He screamed, his voice lost in the roar. The water swept them all away, his body vanishing into the flood. We scrambled for higher ground, dragging survivors, clutching Noah. The water surged below, carrying the dead into the river, their bodies tumbling, their moans fading. The dam groaned, cracks spreading, concrete crumbling. The flood roared, the turbines shattering, sparks flying. The world shook, the air filled with dust and thunder. Then silence. The water receded, the tunnels empty. The dead were gone, swept into the river. The dam still stood, cracked but unbroken. We collapsed in the control room, gasping, our bodies trembling. Lila clutched Noah, whispering prayers. Ruiz sat beside me, his shotgun empty, his eyes hollow. We'd held the line, but at what cost? Briggs was gone. Half the survivors were gone. The dam was broken, the river raging. Nevada itself was crumbling. I looked at the badge still pinned to my chest, its shine dulled by blood and dust. Dalton's voice echoed in my head. Hold the line. We had, for now. When dawn broke over the desert, the Hoover Dam was behind us, cracked and groaning but still standing. The flood had swept the dead away, but it had taken Briggs and half our people with it. We were fewer now, hollowed out, shadows of who we'd been. We followed the highway west, the asphalt broken, littered with burned-out cars and bones bleached by the sun. The desert gave way to the outskirts of Las Vegas, and for the first time in days I felt something like awe. The strip rose from the sand like a graveyard of giants. Neon signs flickered weakly, their colors bleeding into the morning haze. Casinos stood silent, their glass shattered, their doors hanging open. Billboards for shows and concerts still loomed, faces of celebrities smiling down on a city that no longer existed. But the city wasn't empty. Figures moved among the ruins, staggering, moaning, their eyes clouded. The undead filled the streets, crawling over cars, pressing against doors, their moans echoing between the towers. The city that had once never slept was now a hive of the dead. We took shelter in the shell of a diner, its windows shattered, its booths overturned. Lila sat with Noah in her lap, whispering that it would be all right, though her voice trembled. Ruiz leaned against the counter, his shotgun across his knees, his eyes hollow. "This is it," he muttered. "The new Nevada." He wasn't wrong. We watched from the diner as the dead shuffled past, their moans rising into a chorus. They filled the strip, spilling from casinos, staggering across the asphalt. The city was theirs now. I looked at the badge still pinned to my chest, its shine dulled by blood and dust. Once it had meant something. Law, order, protection. Now it was just a piece of metal, a relic of a world that no longer existed. But I couldn't take it off, because if I did, I'd be admitting the truth, that the world was gone, that the dead had won, that there was nothing left worth fighting for. Dalton had told us to hold the line. Briggs had told us to fight for ourselves. Both were gone, swallowed by the dead. All that was left was us, broken, bleeding, but alive. I stood, my voice low but steady. We keep moving. We find shelter. We protect each other. That's all that matters now. The survivors looked at me, their eyes hollow, their faces pale. But they nodded. Because what else was there? We left the diner, moving through the ruins, our weapons ready, our breaths shallow. The dead filled the streets, but we slipped through shadows, silent, careful. The strip loomed above us, its neon lights flickering, its towers crumbling. Las Vegas had always been a city of illusions, bright lights, false promises, dreams built on sand. Now the illusion was gone, and all that remained was the truth. The dead owned the city. But we were still here, and as long as we were breathing, as long as we were fighting, Nevada wasn't completely lost. Not yet. Nevada is gone, the highways are graveyards, the towns are coffins, and the desert is a sea of bones. The storm buried the old world. The dead claimed what was left, and the living tore each other apart. I walked the ruins with a badge still pinned to my chest. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Not to the dead, not to the raiders, not to the survivors who look at me with hollow eyes. But I keep it, because it reminds me of who I was, and who I still have to be. I was a cop when the world ended. I enforced laws that no longer exist, protected people who are mostly gone, and swore an oath to a country that doesn't answer its radios anymore. But an oath isn't something you break just because the world does. The strip still glows faintly at night, neon bleeding across empty streets. The lights shine over silence, over hunger, over death. They shine for no one. But I keep walking, I keep fighting, because as long as I'm breathing, Nevada isn't completely lost. I was a cop when the world ended, and I'll be a cop until the last echo fades.